everyone to week 2 of our quarantine conservation series. Today is Let Us Help You Tuesdays. I am Whitney McGrew. I am the Executive Director for Warwick County Soil and Water Conservation District. This is Miles. He is my little temporary helper. Work from home life, guys. So, you think that's funny? So today we are going to talk to you guys about starting seeds indoors. So last week we talked about patio gardens and planting directly into your patio pots. Some cool season vegetables that are ready to go now, can still handle this cool weather. And we went ahead and got those planted and got them out. Alright, so last week we talked a lot about doing your own patio garden and cold season vegetables. We planted some lettuce and some spinach, and so this week I wanted to talk a little bit about warm season vegetables and how you can go ahead and start your seeds indoors for this summer. So full disclaimer, we're not going to go super in-depth with this. We're just going to kind of hit the high notes. There are a lot of really good resources out there if you guys want to look more information up. And if you have questions, you can always send us a message or put it in the comments below, and we'll be happy to find you an answer. But we're kind of limited on time, so we're just going to talk about the containers a little bit. We've already talked about seed selection in the previous video. We're going to talk about light and water requirements, and then transitioning them outdoors. So I have 3 types here today of containers that you can use to start your seeds. There are way more than just those 3, so don't feel like you're limited to what I'm showing you today. If you're really creative, there's a lot of cool stuff you can do. I'll flash some pictures up here to show you guys, but you can use recycled materials to make your own greenhouses. There's just really a lot of cool options for starting your seeds and getting them outdoors before the weather's even warm enough. But the ones I have here today, so the first one I'm going to show you is this. This is actually an old bread pan, and it's kind of rusted out, so I'm not really using it for baking purposes anymore. So what you can do is you can fill it up with a seed starting mix. You want to make sure that you get a good quality soil. You're going to have better seedlings, better germination rates. They're going to be a little bit more hardy. You don't want to just go out into your yard and get a shovel full of soil and use it to start seeds. You might get some stuff to germinate, but they've got some pretty heavy nutrient requirements up front until they have enough leaves to make adequate food for the whole plant. So that is a really good option. Any pans, pots, plastic, metal, whatever you have will work to start your seeds. One thing I want you to be aware of is when you do start them in something like this versus something that's individualized compartments, it can be kind of tricky to separate seeds or your seedlings and transplant them when you're ready. You just have to be a little more cautious because sometimes those roots can intertwine. So just something to be aware of. It still works really great, but it's also a little bit hard to differentiate your seedlings. So I would come up with some kind of clear divider if you're going to put multiple species in that, because once they start seeding out, it's really hard to tell them apart until the plants get quite a bit larger. So the second one that I'm going to show you is actually another free option, and this is an egg carton with used eggshells in it. So for most people this is waste, right? If you compost, you might put the shells in your compost. Otherwise, all of this would normally go in the trash. It works great for starting your seeds. The only caveat to this is they're not really large. So you're kind of limited to how long you can continue to keep your seedlings in just this. These work well if you want to start your seeds and then transplant them to a bigger pot that may be still indoors or protected. but still a great option. You just have to be mindful that some of your bigger plants like tomatoes and peppers may not do quite so well in these because they are just a little small. But it is a great option. It also puts organic matter back into your soil or your pot, whatever you're using, when that eggshell starts to break down. So it's kind of a win-win. Alright, so the last one that I have with me to show you guys is this one right here. It is like a mini greenhouse kit that I got from our local hardware store. It came with a lid, and that helps keep moisture in, so your seedlings don't dry out quite as fast. It has these, and it's a set of 2. All in all, I think it's 72 cells that you have to start plants in. Then it also has the tray underneath to catch water and all of that fun stuff. So it has a soil medium. This is actually coconut fiber. And what you do is it's one of these per individual slot. You would just add water and wait for it to soak it all up and expand. Then you want to kind of take your finger and tamp it down a little bit, make sure there's no air pockets. And voila, you've got a seed kit. So the one thing I want to caution you about buying these is it's really easy because it doesn't look like a lot. When you just look at this tray, you're like, that's not that many plants, right? So you fill them all up with all of these seeds, because obviously when you buy a pack of seeds, there are a lot of seeds in one pack. But I know for me personally, I am doing a patio garden this year instead of my traditional large garden, so I don't need 72 plants. And I definitely don't have 72 pots to stick them in. So I really want you guys to think about what you're going to eat, how you're going to map out your garden if you're doing a traditional garden, how many pots you have, what size they are, and really be intentional about what you're planting and what you're going to harvest, because the last thing you want is to put all this effort into it and then all of these seedlings go to waste if you don't have anywhere to put them. So like I said, there are way more options out there than what I just showed you. A lot of the stores have these really cool containers that are made out of the similar material to these cardboard egg cartons that are really good to start stuff into, because most of those are biodegradable, so you can just put them down in the ground with your seedlings in it. So it's a really easy option too. So I encourage you to look around, see what works best for your situation and what you want to plant. The next thing that I want to touch on a little bit, and I'm not going to go too far in depth because we talked a lot about seeds in our last video, but whenever you're thinking about what you're going to plant, you want to check out the back of your seed packet. Most of these would tell you that you need to plant it probably 6 weeks before the last hard frost. Now, that is not a magic number, magic date. It's not like St. Patty's Day where it's the same every year. Spencer County, it actually says it can range from April 4th all the way until May 27th. That's a really wide gap. So what I encourage you to do is to just watch the weather. Wait for it to be consistently warm, not 3 days in a row. I'm talking like weeks in a row of 70 or higher. And then, you know, your nights start getting not quite as cool as they are here in late March. You can also look at the Farmer's Almanac. A lot of people go by the dates in that book for their gardening stuff. And it's a really useful tool. It has a lot of cool information in it as well. But look at the back of your seed packet and it will tell you ballpark when it's safe to move that plant outside. So I have cherry tomatoes here. That's one of the things that I'm going to get started today in hopes to move outside in a few weeks. And on the back of the seed packet, it says that it needs 70 to 75 degrees to even germinate. So if you try to do what we did last week where you put it in a pot and you stick it outside now, it's not even going to germinate. Alright, the other thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to plant them too early. So 6 to 8 weeks is the good ballpark, like we mentioned earlier. If you plant these in January, they're not going to be in good shape by the time you're ready. They're going to need to be in the ground long before you can put them in the ground or your pot or wherever you're choosing to put it in. So don't start too early. It's easy to get excited, but try to wait. It's better for your plants that way. The other thing that we want to talk about is light requirements. So your seedlings are going to need a lot of light. The seed has some food in it to get that seedling up and going and get the first leaves out, but it's not going to last long. And so this is where your high quality seeding mix that you've got, or I say seeding mix, but seeding soil is going to come in handy here, because it's going to have all of those essential nutrients readily available for your plants as they're germinating and their leaves aren't quite big enough to create a bunch of food to sustain the whole plant. So, like I said, the high quality soil goes a long way, but they're going to need light and warmth. So you can't put them in your garage unless you have a heated garage and that temperature is well maintained. The best place to put them if you're going to have them in your house is in a south-facing windowsill. Now keep in mind, these seedlings are going to grow really fast and they're going to grow towards the light. So sometimes they can curve. So think about that, and maybe every couple days rotate them around so they start to grow more straight and not so everywhere. You can also get a grow light. They work really well and they do produce a little bit of heat too, so that will help with your germination. You want to keep the light as close to the plant as possible, so where it's almost touching it. If you start the light out here and your seedlings are just this tall, your seedlings are going to try to go up towards the light and they're going to be really leggy. They're not going to be real thick and sturdy like you want when you move them outside. So light is super, super important to getting a really good sprout. The other thing is, when you start transitioning these plants outside, one thing you want to think about is maybe doing it to them gently. The sun is really intense. I don't know if any of you have ever been sunburnt, but that can kind of happen to plants. So if you've kind of had them in a modified light situation, it's not a bad idea to ease them into the sunlight for a few hours at a time and do it over a couple days. That way it's not such a shock and you don't burn up your plant. The other thing that is essential to having healthy seedlings is water. They need a lot more water than you would think. So the seedlings are small and the soil that you're likely growing them in is going to dry out quickly because it's not in a big pot, it's in a really small area. So buying the seed kits like this one that have the lid will help retain some of that moisture. It won't dry out quite as fast, but you definitely do want to check your water and keep them watered well during this process. The last thing that I want to remind you guys of is to notate what you planted and where. So if you plant them in a big seed tray like this, and they start germinating and you've been turning it because you've had it in a windowsill and you want them to grow nice and pretty and straight, are you going to remember what you planted in that corner 6 weeks from now? I know I wouldn't. So the cool thing about the kit is it comes with this little graph sheet here. There's the same number of cells across the top and the side, so you can put what you planted and when you planted it, and I thought that was really neat and a nice touch to the packet that I got from them. The other option is to use easy stuff like popsicle sticks, or I've used clothespins and just clipped them onto the edge. You can label them however you would like, but it is important to do that so when you start transplanting them, you know what pot you want to put them in. For example, you don't want to put your tomato plant on accident in a pot that's this size because it won't do well, I can promise you that. Okay, so like I said, we just kind of wanted to hit the high notes and give you guys the basics of starting seeds indoors. I'm glad you guys tuned in today, and I hope you'll join us tomorrow for a hippie hump day. I think Shelby's going to have some awesome tips for going green. So if that's something that interests you, I encourage you to tune in. And until then, I will see you guys next week.